Hello and welcome to this, a rather different video to what we normally have. So, you may not know or may not know, one of my Rage episodes may have pointed this. I'm a big fan of Overwatch League. I've got merch, and this may be pointing a bit to what's been happening this week. But essentially, Overwatch League 2021 has started. It's Season 4, and we've just had an amazing first week. And what you see on screen now was my pre-season rankings. So, in that video, I detailed this as my overall rankings for this season. What we're going to do is we're going to open two of these videos and we're just going to separate them, and we're going to do a tier break for between APAC and NA. So, for those of you who don't know, Overwatch League is a game based on the game, is a tournament based on the game Overwatch. It has a league, there are 20 teams. Because of the pandemic, it was split into APAC, which is Asia Pacific region, and NA, which is now NA and Europe. And there's been a huge range of off-season changes, and there was a lot of speculation about how the season was going to go. And so this is going to be power rankings, which means it's based on how teams look week to week. And so we're going to have to try and split these into their respective regions. Give me a second. Right, and so we split it into the 12 teams in NA at the top and the 8 teams in Asia at the bottom. So, pre-season, I think I had left it where I thought Shanghai Dragons, Seoul Dynasty, Philly Fusion, New York Excelsior, Hangzhou Spark, Chengdu Hunters, Guangzhou. And we've just seen season 1. We've just seen week 1. Now, the teams who haven't played yet are New York, so we're going to put them separate because they're an unknown quantity. And we haven't seen Hangzhou Spark yet. So we've seen these 6 teams play. Philly Fusion went 2-0, beating Guangzhou Charge and LA Valiant. Statistically and realistically, the 2 weakest teams, but they are 2-0. Now, Chengdu Hunters, they beat last season's overall champions, Shanghai Dragons, who just seemed off the ball this week, and it seems like they're trying things that they haven't sort of played properly. They're trying positions that they just don't know how to play. Last season, Shanghai's greatest strength was being solid, being coordinated, knowing where on the map to play, but this match was just all over the place. They looked like they didn't know what they were doing. Because of this though, and Chengdu Hunters also beat, I believe it was the LA Valiant, dropping a single map, but we'll talk about LA Valiant in a bit, but I think their 2-0 is more impressive than Philadelphia Fusion. However, and as you can tell, I've got Chengdu Hunters merch. Always been a big fan, always big fan of the Jinmu. But I think their new main tank Gaga is amazing and is really carrying this team, and just having a solid main tank I think has just made this team infinitely better. And then at this moment in time, unfortunately, I'm going to have to put Seoul Dynasty above Dragons. Although they lost to Philly Fusion and they, I think, beat Valiant or Guangzhou, at least they've got a win. And Shanghai Dragons also have a win. But at this very moment in time, I think Shanghai Dragons look a little bit lost. And unfortunately, I'm going to put LA Valiant above Guangzhou Charge. Now, everyone was low on LA Valiant. This was a team that was based in America. But then they blew up their whole roster. And they decided that we're just going to sell up and we're going to move to Asia. They dropped their whole team. And because of the contract situation, all of their basically old team members had to find new contracts or just were out of a job. So this left a bad taste in a lot of fans' mouths. And also, they just put a team together based on the basically scraps, because everyone else had already made their roster. So you're left with making a roster out of people that either players who were not good enough for other teams, untested, and just people felt, okay, we're not going to take a chance on them, or players who were just controversial and known to be controversial, players like Crystal. However, in their first couple of weeks, yes, they went 0-2, but I would say they looked pretty decent. And if they just have a couple of players who know what they're doing, they could be a lot better. Guangzhou Charge last season was second in this region. behind Shanghai Dragons consistently. Perhaps they didn't make it to as far in tournaments, but they did win one tournament. However, this year I think losing Happy and losing Shu, who is their main support, is a huge loss. And I think we saw that. And I think the replacements they've got are either too new to the game. Mike Haley looks too lost. He doesn't look like he knows where he is supposed to be on the map. Mechanically, I'm pretty sure he's amazing. He switched to a Widow and popped a couple of headshots here and there. But overall, he looks like he doesn't know what he's doing in the game. And Mandu, I don't know what he's doing. I just watched Custer. Shout out to you, Custer. I saw his breakdown of Guangzhou, and Mandu's Brigitte looks honestly my level, and I'm bad level. I'm like high, like low gold, high silver Brigitte. Like mechanically, he's obviously amazing, much better than me, but I don't think he knows the role that well. Now, if I'm going to posit a guess where I think New York Excelsior, we saw them preseason, I'll put them here, and Hangzhou Spark, I think they're arguably, like they could be up anywhere from up here down to down here. So I'm going to put them halfway, because I like their colours more than New York, I'm going to put them there. Now on to the North America rankings. So, I'm going to have to put Houston Outlaw up top, and I'm going to have to eat my words. Houston Outlaws, now, again, a bit of background. Houston Outlaws had put a roster together. They're always people who choke. They never make it to... So, Overwatch League is based on best of 5 mats. Whenever they get a 2-2 situation, they'll always lose. That's what they're known for. And they're always so fluctuant. Like, they had good players, bad players in the past, good rosters and bad rosters, but they would never be consistent. Like, they can look amazing against the top team, but then look trash against the bottom team and lose to a bottom team. So you didn't know what you were getting with them. And they had all these changes in the off-season. They were bringing in some contenders off-tanks that nobody had really known of, although they did scrim with last year's champions. They were unknown quantity. And then you brought your DPS of hydration. You had 5 players on your DPS line. That's too many, really, to be coordinated. And you brought the person who you made play your tank roles last season into being your projectile DPS this season. And then you were also bringing in these other DPS. You were bringing in a player who had left your team, gone to another team and come back. You didn't know how good they was. You brought a player who retired in Jake and brought him back in this weird new coach player role. So there was a lot of variables, but I feel like they've hit gold. And watching them play, honestly, like I thought they would choke. Quite honestly, it was map 5, but Django came around and hit that fatty shatty and just took the series. Like, I think Django has cemented himself as one of the top tanks in the league. So Houston Outlaws up top, San Francisco Shock after them. Now again, we're gonna have to put a tier breaker for teams who we haven't seen yet. That'll be London, Paris, Boston, and Washington. Now, Shock goes second. Yes, they went 1-1, but I think they went a close 1-1. And I think Gladiators look a little bit lost. They've got this new roster. They've got one of arguably the best main supports in Moth from last year's champions to San Francisco Shock. But I think that the way they played looks like they haven't coordinated their team together yet. Vancouver Titans, unfortunately, there was sparks of brilliance, but they're not at the races. Now, Florida and Atlanta. Now, Fuel beat the Gladiators, but they are missing a hit scan. So, for those of you who don't know, XE was their hit scan. He was an amazing McCree, an amazing Widow. And he's retired or taken a sabbatical from the league because he's got an injury that's been plaguing him for a while, and I wish him the best on his recovery. But that still leaves a huge hole, and they're trying to adapt. Now, I think some other casters are saying, well, it looks like they're adapting around it, but I think people will cotton on soon that they don't have a hit scan, and if you exploit that, that limits your pool. Like, if you don't have a hit scan, that means you're likely not going to run a composition that involves Ashe, Widowmaker, you've got Sparkle playing a Tracer who what he's not known for, and he not as good at Tracer as some of the other top level Tracers. We're talking Dante, Striker, Yaki, basically from the Houston Shock, from the Outlaws, Shock and Mayhem. Like they are some top level. Gladiators, I think, have Birdering who can play an amazing Tracer. So, like you're putting Sparkle, who basically pulled out this Tracer and looked okay on it, but I don't think that's going to last. So, full disclosure, I've just come back from a shower and I was thinking about where I put Toronto Defiant and how, because I mainly just watched Houston Outlaws versus Shock, and I think that was the best match of the weekend. So I kind of blanked in my mind. Florida Mayhem versus Atlanta Rain, I think, was quite a good match too. So I think I might have just had that cloud, and to be honest, I think I need to rethink this, because so I know I'm sticking with Houston Outlaws top. I'm sticking with San Francisco Shock second. I'm sticking with Vancouver Titans at the bottom of this. Now, LA Glads lost to Dallas Fuel. Dallas Fuel, I think, will be found out by Toronto Defiant. Toronto Defiant reverse swept Atlanta Rain. Florida Mayhem and Atlanta Rain played very close matches. So, and we're just talking, so this is power ranking, so this is in the moment. This doesn't mean like in the future. This has nothing to do with how I think they'll be at the end of the season. This is just going into week 2. Where do I think teams rank? So I think Defiant and Mayhem are pretty close. I think the fact that OGE on Mayhem doesn't have a good Rhine, or at least seemingly seems like Rhine is an ego tank, right? Based on how confident you play. And I think OGE's mental is not strong enough for Rhine. His mechanics on Winston insane. And that's what we saw in the Florida Mayhem versus Atlanta Rain match. Gator and Hawk, when they got to play Rhine, and it was a Rhine dominant map, they were able to win those maps. Florida Mayhem, when they could force their Winston on Atlanta Rain, won those maps. And it came down to the fact that Florida Mayhem were able to just force their style on Atlanta Rain. Defiant being able to reverse sweep Atlanta Rain means that they're able to adapt. Now, do I think Dallas Fuel... So I would put them definitely above Rain. I think Mayhem and Defiant are pretty close. I'll put Defiant over Mayhem because I just think they're a bit more adaptable. Who's on Defiant's team right now? Let's just go Defiant, Toronto Defiant roster. So, because I forget what their team is. I remember them having, so their tanks are Beast, so they have Sado and Michelle. Okay, that's why, that reminds. So Michelle from the Soul Dynasty, and they have Sado. And I think that's a pretty solid backline. And I forgot to mention that Lastro looked quite good, and they have Hisu as well. So yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Yeah, so I will put Defiant there, Mayhem after them. Now, see, the problem with North America is these teams are pretty bunched up. Like, I would say anywhere from Defiant down to Gladiators, this is like a tier where they can all beat each other and they can all lose to each other. So, I think Fuel can match or beat Rain. And I think this is a sticking point. So if I think if Glad can get it together, even though I think they just need to work things out, but I think I'm going to have to put Rain quite low down. Now, we're going to put the teams who haven't played yet, so this is where I expect they'll end up. Just after Vancouver, I think we're going to be having Paris Eternal, unfortunately. My home team, London Spitfire, I think just above them. And Boston Uprising, I think bringing up the rear, so top of this group, but not really breaking. I think Atlanta Rain is going to play gatekeeper this side, and Defiant. I don't know. I think Justice might. See, Justice's backline, Justice's defense, like support, I'm not too confident in. So do I put them above Defiant? I think on paper they should be better. They have Decay, like Decay alone is like insane. Decay, Chuba, they've got Mag, but he's a Contenders rookie who's come in. You don't know how he plays. I'm going to play it safe and I'm going to put them above Mayhem. That's how I'm going to end this week. And I'm pretty happy with that. So we're going to save that. And then we're also going to go into this week's pick'ems. I think, based on their rosters, I think Paris have essentially the contender players that don't come from a single contenders team, some veterans, but they looked a bit iffy. I think Vancouver Titans, having warmed up for a week, Dalton looked pretty good. Most of their roster has some chemistry from last year. I think we're going to see a 3-1 win. I think Gladiators should beat Spitfire. I believe they beat them in the Steel Series tournament before the season started. So I expect them to 3-0. Do I think 3-0? No. Do I think Spitfire? I think it's going to be a close 3-0, but a 3-0 nonetheless. Outlaws. It would be Outlaws to lose, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and win 3-0 over Paris Eternal. They've warmed up, they're playing well, they might come out of stage 1 4-0. I really wish I had done week 1, I didn't do any, but joining late. Anyways, and okay, so Glads versus Boston. So Gladiators, historically, Boston is their boogie team. They did beat them at the end of last season, but they had lost twice. And they were looking good until they came up against Boston. Boston's now got a better roster, but a curse is a curse. But I don't put that much stock in it. I think a 3-1 win to Glads. Now, Justice versus Fuel. This is interesting. Will Decay be able to exploit Dallas's lack of a hit scan, and essentially, if Sparkle goes for a Tracer 1-on-1, he's just going to get shat on. Like, Decay is just better than him in every way. I've got a Dallas Fuel jersey, but I've also got a Washington Justice jersey. So I'm going to go Justice 3-1 here. 3-2 in a close match, I think. And then Sunday, Houston, again, I expect them to 3-1. I think Spitfire might be able to bring out a couple things. I expect Fuel to beat Boston, and I expect Justice to beat Vancouver, and I think I'll go Boston, give Boston 1. So I'm going to save that. And then for Chengdu Hunters versus Excelsior. I think this will be a tight game, but I think New York historically do badly against Chengdu, and I'm not sure their coaching staff has coached aggression into New York, which has always been their problem. I want Hangzhou Spark to win. I don't know why. I've always had an affinity for Hangzhou, and I don't know. I feel like Philly will get exposed. Hangzhou Spark versus Excelsior. I think Excelsior over Hangzhou, even though I've ranked Hangzhou higher, and I've got to represent my boys. I want Chengdu to just stomp Philly, but I'll give Philly the benefit of the doubt. So those are my pick'ems for week 2. Remember to watch Overwatch League starting on Friday UK time. I don't know specifically, but I'll leave their link down below. Friday, Saturday and Sunday. It will be insane. If you're interested in competitive gaming at all, I would recommend it. Follow all the casters. I love their personalities. Sideshow, Bren, Custer, Reinforce. I'm going to put all their links. Avast, I think he's hilarious. So follow them. And also, I'd love to thank you guys for 100 subscribers. Be prepared for some new things that we're going to be trying out. Don't be worried about us not doing FIFA videos. We're still going to continue with those, but we are just going to get more content from us. So I think you should expect 2 FIFA videos a week on average, 1 to 2 Overwatch videos a week, and a couple more things now that the channel is kicking off. And yeah, I'd like to thank you guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment anything you'd like us to play, anything you'd like us to try, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.